and it's just
Yeah. No.
Later, Basil.
No. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, there's a lot of stuff coming out. Like, I saw that movie Black Mass with Johnny Depp, and he played the Irish mobster in Boston, like in the mid-70s to the 80s. And it's when it was at war, kind of between the black mob and the Italian mob, in Boston, the Irish mob and the Italian mob, and how what is it? Not the IRS, the FBI. The FBI was using all the people in the FBI and the cops were all Irish, and then they were kind of all helping each other out. So they sided. They had made an alliance. They call it between
the two mobs.
Oh no, the FBI.
Oh, between the police and the
Irish mob.
And the Irish mob,
because they all started out as street kids, made good, and who became the politician, who became in the FBI, and then so they made an alliance with the Irish mob guy. This guy in the FBI, he says, if you kind of give us information on the Italian mob, then we can get rid of the Italian mob. But in getting rid of the Italian mob, that they let the Irish mob guy become this super power, and kind of let him get away with everything just in order to get information, to destroy the Italians.
So I figured it was better to wipe out one of the two mobs and let one of them survive and prosper than to try to wipe out both of them. So, and it was just funny because like the mob guys would do all these horrible, unspeakable things, and then they'd go to church, and somehow it was all okay. As long as they go to confession. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Father said, yeah, you're forgiven. Yeah, whatever. Whatever, don't worry about it.
Oh.
Whatever.
So,
and yet the many of the Irish, and I guess presumably most of the Catholic, and the Italians are all Catholics.
Right, exactly.
So they got the church that's as a bond and at the same time as a wedge.
Yeah, it was just really interesting because, my dad's roots are Italian and my mom's, half Irish, half Italian, and but they're both Catholic, so that's that common bond that they share. And, but yeah, it was interesting to think that, about I guess we were just talking about the church and how, these things that go on. And this is up in like the 70s and the 80s. It wasn't that long ago. No. How, and who knows if that stuff still goes on. I don't know. Yeah, interesting. But, so Black Mass, Boston.
And this is Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp, yep. And it was unusual. He'd never to see him play a character like that.
Well, it's a lot of different characters.
Yeah, I'll say.
Does a lot of quite a variety of characters.
Yeah, and I've never been a big mob movie. I've never really seen Goodfellas or any of those. Although people have told me, oh my God, you have to see these movies. But I've never really been. Not that I'm a big.
I'm the only person I know that when somebody says Robert De Niro, I go, eh.
Yeah. Who's in The Intern, by the way, I've heard.
Big deal.
Yeah.
It's a good actor, but so big deal.
Right.
So I like the Godfather films, at least the first two.
Right.
Which
Al Pacino, Robert De Niro. Who else was in those?
And both films won Academy Awards, which is rare for a follow-up film.
Right.
I mean, who can recall Jaws 2 or Jaws 3 or Jaws 25 or Jaws 47?
Right.
They all stink. The first one was great and the rest of them were worthless. But The Godfather...
Right.
You got 1 and 2, both great films.
Number 3 was kind of bad, but 1 and 2 were good.
3 wasn't much, but for the first two to be really interesting films.
Yeah, no, I know, definitely. Who was
Vito,
the other one?
wasn't it De Niro that played Vito Corleone in the follow-up?
Who's the one who played the father? Oh, he was in Guys and Dolls. What was his name? Marlon Brando.
Oh, Brando,
Yeah.
Yep.
No, The Godfather. Good films.
Good actor, yeah.
But it's just interesting, how... both these Italians, Irish, Catholic Church, and all this stuff that goes on. And
so how do the Caribbeans come into this? How do they fit into all this? I mean, they've got their own, they've got their own little niche in the, there's some gangsters amongst them too.
In the Caribbeans? Oh, I'm not familiar with that at all.
Folks in America that are of Caribbean descent. And of course, just like Italians and just like Irish and just like any other nationality,
right?
99% of them are just regular, good, hard-working folks. But you get the element that are trying to take the easy way out,
right?
And make money and ascend to get ahead in the world by doing devious things.
And what can prevent that from happening? Like education, like getting people off the streets. I mean,
yeah, give them alternatives.
Yeah,
and then you can cut down the bad apples from 1% down to maybe 1/10%.
Yeah,
because there's always going to be a few, but it's better. You're right. It's better to have educational opportunities that allow people to
give people an opportunity
to do something constructive with their life.
And it's interesting because there was that film, Precious, about the girl.
Oh, yeah.
And she was in a family where the mother was on welfare and they lived in the city.
Yep.
And she wanted to go to school and she was, smart. And then the mother actually didn't want her to go to school. So you could have, because she said, I can't let you go to school because then I won't get my benefits. And, So then you could have situations where people might want to have the opportunity, and then they're still prevented from.
Parents go through this. And there's also the, the fear in parents that if their kids get to be too much smarter than them or too much better educated than them, then that'll make the parents feel lesser.
Right.
So it's a tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing that parents go through. On the one hand, they want their kids to be educated and successful, but on the other hand, they have a fear of that.
Or maybe some kids are afraid of surpassing their parents because they feel...
The dynamics of the family, sure,
Yeah. But my cousin, she's a social worker in New York, and she works with a lot of these families, trying to get kids off of welfare or, keep them in school.
And I guess all you can look at is, look for those small successes. It doesn't have to be everyone, and it doesn't have to be everybody being a tremendous success. But every little incremental improvement you put into people's lives is worthy of note.
Yeah,
I guess that's what you take out of a job like that. You feel some comfort. It's the reverse of when we go to school, and you know that every teacher you have is not going to be a great teacher.
Of course.
It just can't. There have to be. It's a rainbow. There have to be the lousy ones. There have to be the average ones, and there has to be that occasional good one. But even to have that one exceptional teacher that makes a big effect on your life,
exactly,
a powerful effect on your life, is the one that is that one special teacher that you remember.
I was just having this discussion with my mom. We go walking in the mornings, and we were saying how you never know. I bet a teacher never knows what impact they can have on their student. I'm like, maybe we impact people in ways that we'll never know.
That's true, because you may one day have a child, a young adult at that point, come back to visit their first, second, third, whatever grade teacher, and tell them what a marvelous impact that teacher had on your life.
Right, exactly.
But you don't know it until it's time. You don't see that. You don't see that unwinding, that evolution of the student beyond when they leave your classroom to go on to another classroom.
I mean, do you have teachers that you wish you could go back to and say, you had a great impact on my life? I mean, but you never had a chance to?
Ruth Calderwood.
What grade did you have her for?
I was in Ruth Calderwood's class the moment that John Kennedy was assassinated.
Oh, wow.
Fourth grade.
Wow.
Fifth grade. One or the other thing. Fifth grade. Yeah, it was fifth grade when he was killed. And the principal came from classroom to classroom and told each classroom that the president had been shot and killed, and we were going to be let out of school early.
Wow.
And we all got let out of school, and most of us actually walked. I lived about half a mile away from school in Riverside School in Greenwich, and walked home, and then of course immediately turned on the television and spent the whole weekend. It was on a Friday, so you spent the whole weekend watching the events unfold. But Ruth Calderwood very much affected me afterwards. She kind of walked us through the whole agonizing thing in the weeks after then, and I really appreciated what she did. Did she ever know how she affected any of us? I don't know. She may have.
Right.
But I never thought to go back and thank her. But years later, I wish I could have.
And just based on the kind of person that she was.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we can have such impact on people just based on who we are, and not necessarily have to quote unquote like do anything, just by being who we are.
Creating a comfort zone.
Exactly. And
because kids need, we have a certain comfort zone at home to some degree, some more than others.
Right.
But there have to be comfort zones outside of the home.
Exactly.
For a lot of kids, there has to be a huge comfort zone outside of the home, because for a lot of kids, there is not a comfort zone in the house. You just, we aren't blessed with marvelous parents and parents that had any idea how to be parents. So,
right.
But it's
it's interesting as a healer. I think part of what I do, or any kind of a healer or therapist, is just creating that comfort zone, and allowing the healing to take place, because essentially we heal ourselves.
You've talked about that, how you just create the environment, and then people will heal themselves.
Yeah,
they'll take what they like. Think of your office as being a classroom.
Right.
You're learning. The person's learning and gaining a little bit of knowledge.
Right.
In the classroom, but you spend most of your time outside of the classroom.
Right, right.
So you've got to use the classroom as a springboard to do further study and do whatever exercises you provide for them to do to augment what you do and to help them heal themselves.
Yeah. And even in teaching, I mean, you provide a classroom, the teacher teaches, and then as a student, you have to do your part too.
Yeah.
Study and do your homework, and as a two-way, anything's really a two-way process.
Yeah.
Healthcare, teaching, education,
Yeah.
A lot of the teachers that meant a lot to me were, in times in my life when I did go through tough times, the teachers that were the most, sympathetic and to what I was going through, and knowing that they were there for me, and so those are the teachers I remember, the people anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
You know what the Socratic method is, correct?
The Socrates. No, tell me, what is?
Well, Socratic method it's a method of teaching whereby you don't just ba 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 ba, and the students write down notes. In the Socratic method of education, the teacher is more often asking questions and bringing out thoughts from the students rather than providing them with facts. The teacher is stimulating them, motivating them to look elsewhere, to do it outside reading, to do things, to take an interest in a subject matter, and to do their own education.
Right.
And the teacher evokes, asks. The teacher's doing more asking than they are speaking, and that's the Socratic method of education. I always preferred that because it puts the burden on the student.
Yeah, exactly.
And provides a stimulus for the student to find what they find interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Because in answering questions, in order to answer a question, you have to prove that you actually understand it.
Yeah, you have to do a little thinking rather than just digesting and spitting back.
Exactly, repeating what you read or heard. So you've taught.
Yeah.
So is that the method that you would use?
It's I only taught for 3 years Title I reading in Florida, and then graciously, the state of Florida changed the educational system, and I taught in a school for juvenile delinquents, and thankfully, we loved the job.
Right.
But Debbie and I hated Florida.
Right.
The bugs, the humidity.
Right.
We were out in this little inky-dink town in the center of nowhere.
Right.
The town was so small that every phone in the town, and this is back in the day when you only had landlines.
Right.
But every phone had not just the first 3 digits, but every phone had the first same number of the four number part at the end. That's how. So it had to be fewer than 10,000 phones in this entire calling area. So that's how small the area was.
Wow.
But and we just hated it, and we were Yankees, which was not helpful because it was in rural Florida.
Right.
And so it was, as I say, the job was great, but thankfully they changed the laws and they went to more community-based programs for the kids. So they had to be closer to home. They couldn't be in this incarcerated school. So they gave us an option of, they changed the school over from ages like 8 to 20 from all over.
Wow.
To minimum security prison for adult males aged 20 to 25, and they said you can either have basically the same job here, or we'll have to lay you off. And I guess stop right there, lay me off. We're going back to Connecticut. Thank you. And by then I had a daughter, so I got my enjoyment out of my teaching enjoyment was in my own home.
Wow.
Because of course kids learn a lot more in their home.
Right.
Than they do in the school because they spend more time at home.
Right.
So it's only natural that they would learn a lot more in the home than in the classroom.
So what would juvenile delinquents tend to be incarcerated for? I'm just curious.
We had kids that were everything from runaway to murder. There were a few murderers, not too many of them.
Between the ages of 8 and 20?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. And the kids, as I say, a lot of them were very far flung. There were 100, 200. Some of them were from the Northeast that had run away.
Wow.
So a lot of them were hundreds of miles from home, and the parents either couldn't take the time to see them or just didn't want to waste their time seeing their own kids. So by putting them more into more community-based programs, it put more of a burden on the parents to be involved in their kids' lives, which was good, which I think was good.
Would they be in foster homes?
No, they would put them in group homes.
Wow.
So they went more to a group home basis. And of course, the worst of the worst would be in prison.
Of course.
But the rest of them would be in group homes, and it was a good thing. But it was the opportunity to get the heck out of Florida and come back to Connecticut.
What an experience.
It was interesting.
Huh. You've led quite a life.
And we were talking about, we only have a little bit more time, but we were talking about, we were watching Rich Frascone's show before, and he had this grilling by right-wingers in Congress grilling the head of Planned Parenthood, the president of Planned Parenthood, and apparently they had this video which shows what they claim to be an abortion, when in fact it's a miscarriage. Oh. And very big difference between a miscarriage and abortion. Miscarriage is a spontaneous thing. It happens. There's nothing you can do to stop it.
Exactly.
But they play off this miscarriage. A woman has a miscarriage, and they pretend that it's an abortion for the purpose of trying to discredit Planned Parenthood. So while we were in Florida, Debbie and I, shout out Debbie, we became pregnant, and then Debbie miscarried. We miscarried. We lost twins. And this was down in Florida. And it was a horrible thing for us. And this is back in when you were born, 76.
Wow.
76. And the twins died, and we had no idea how common it was to have a miscarriage.
Right, exactly.
We thought nobody in the hospital gave us any clue about this, so we thought we were the only people that this ever happened to.
Right, no one talks about it here.
Yeah, no one talked about it. No one gave us any sense of, it's a horrible thing, but it happens. You have to go back and when you're ready, try again.
Yeah.
But So we eventually did, and Kimberly was born in 1977. But it was just a very, very horrible experience in the hospital.
Yeah, when I was in Italy visiting family in Calabria, in Cosenza, you know, my grandfather came from a small village, and when I'm visiting these relatives, I remember one of them, I was like my father's cousin, and she took me to these little graveyard cemetery, and she's like, oh, these are my babies that I lost, you know, and she would, and it was like, it made me realize it was more common, but here people don't talk about it, but there, I mean, she was just, it just made it seem like it was part of life.
We didn't have a chance to bury our babies or anything. I mean, they brought them in. They were about this big.
Right.
And you could barely tell. You could see a rib cage. You know, it was
Yeah.
It was very hard to even know that, you know, other than the fact that we knew that they were real children.
Right.
But they took them away and disposed of them.
Right.
You know, a lot of people want the opportunity when they miscarry to name the baby, and occasionally they'll have a ceremony, and they'll bury or they'll cremate the baby. So at least there's this ceremony. This you get to go through these stages of grief, and understand and feel, let your feelings out, and well, in this particular video that they showed. The woman, she miscarried. She was 19 weeks pregnant, and the babies just died. They couldn't keep them alive. They couldn't keep them in vitro, so they died. And the couple brought their two daughters, who were already, you know, maybe 8 and 10 years old. They looked like they were about 10ish years old, to come in and actually have an opportunity to meet their little brother who wasn't born, Walter. And it was very touching, and you know, and it was sad to see this event being used for political purposes to try to discredit Planned Parenthood. But it was actually disgusting that they would do that, but they did it.
And apparently, this couple who had the baby had agreed to it too.
Yeah. And it was a very private moment. I mean, they allowed it to be taped, and because I guess they wanted, to keep the tape so that the family would have it and would understand and would get a chance to, maybe let grandchildren, great-grandchildren, learn about what happened, learn a little of this sad moment in family history. But in that cheerful note, I think we're going to have to. I think we. Progressive Soup. Emily Volpentesas, David Stevenson.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, and send us some ideas for shows. We have some great ideas, but could always use a few other ones.
Yes.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Where did they show this video? On YouTube or something?
In front of Congress.
Oh, why is it going to be on network television?
It's probably out there. It's probably out there on YouTube.
I can't think anyone would agree to do that.
They got it out for Planned Parenthood, and they don't pay any attention to the fact that Planned Parenthood, almost all of what they do are well-woman exams, or at least exams to preventative type of medicine, breast exams, pelvic exams, all that kind of stuff that allow women to stay healthy and not get sick.
Right.
And another thing that they did in Congress was they showed this chart.
Right.
And the point they're trying to make with this chart was that Planned Parenthood's number of abortions are going up, and the number of breast exams are going down. But they took the figures and they showed them in a chart that even when they got to the end of the chart, the present day, the number of abortions was tiny, and the number of breast exams was huge number of breast exams.
Right.
But the chart shows them crossing paths to give the impression that Planned Parenthood is big in the abortion business, which they're not, and they don't get any federal funds for it, for doing that, because that's law.
Right.
And it makes it look like Planned Parenthood is doing fewer and fewer breast exams, which.
Right.
So they took a line that went
right.
just ever so slightly up, and they just tilted it like this, and then they took the line that was just ever so slightly down, and they jammed it down, and it's just pitiful to see people lie like this.
Right.
And just try to paint a picture, which they're not stupid. I mean, they can read, they can see numbers, they can understand, but they lie and skew numbers to make things look like they aren't, and it's just very frustrating to see people that are basically good people lie through their teeth like that.
Yeah.